Hello, thanks for joining us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguele. As a nation, we have long ago decided to march beyond the dimness of night into the open day of renewed national hope. The question we now ask ourselves is whether to remain faithful to the work inherent in building a better society or retreat into the shadows of our unmet potential, quote and unquote. I'm sure you know the answer to that. Well, those are the words of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, during his inaugural speech at his swearing-in ceremony as the 16th President of Nigeria. Nigeria's democratic journey has indeed reached another milestone. Following the start of a new administration, we all witnessed a peaceful and smooth transition of power. Nigeria, no doubt, has demonstrated once again to the world that we are united, and we have proven that 24 years of unbroken democracy is achievable and a historic legacy. In the midst of daunting challenges, there is need for friendly policies that will douse anxieties, especially with expectations from Nigerians, even as the nation enters a new phase of democratic governance. Many have applauded the president's speech as a renewed hope, indeed, that will birth a new Nigeria, especially as the president spoke on salient issues that propel building a better Nigeria. On Platform today, we will be taking an in-depth look at some of the issues raised during the president's inaugural speech, and our focus will be policy direction of President Tinubu's administration. Our guest is Chief George Abakahi, political affairs analyst. Thank you very much for joining us on Platform.
Thank you for having me.
You're a friend of the house. We're glad to have you on Platform. All right, before I introduce our panelists, let's let you in on who Chief George Abakahi is. He's into Global Ventures. He's the Managing Director of Media and Capacity Development Consultants. He's a member editorial board of Community Voice Magazine, Southeast Leader Tinubu Support Organization, member of the All Progressives Congress, PCC Media and Publicity Directorate, political and public affairs analyst. And his educational qualifications, he has a BSc in political sciences, master's degree in international relations, and PhD in international relations. Thank you once again for joining us, Chief Abakahi.
Thank you for having me, as always.
We have another chief who is our panelist, because coincidentally, my panelist and my guest are dressed like two chiefs. So please welcome Tariq Ben, our correspondent here in NTA. Tariq.
Thanks for having me, Ruth.
Thank you.
Mitaire, yes. Not Chief Mitaire.
I know. But you're dressed like Chief Abakahi here.
Okay,
so that's why I'm wondering, if you both planned it.
We planned it.
He is actually the chief we have here.
Okay, he's the real chief. All right, so Chief Abakahi, we witnessed a very inspiring speech. Now, I'm quoting what a lot of people have said during the inauguration ceremony when President Tinubu was sworn in to government. And one thing that stood out in that speech was our diversity, our resilience as a nation, as a people, carrying everyone along based on what he stated. But let me get your opinion. What's your general perspective, going by that?
Thank you again for having me. In fact, I was privileged and honored to be at the inaugural event. And his speech, to me, has been the very best of all his speeches throughout his political career. And the speech, to me, is, pretty much reminiscent of the speech that President J.F. Kennedy gave, when he assumed the presidency of the United States in the 60s, when he told Americans, ask what you can do for your country and not what the country will do for you. I think his speech, he was able to encompass, all parts of our national unity. He talked about unity, He talked about management of diversity, which is very critical, to the stability and development of this great country. And he also talked about, some other policies which are very germane, to the socio-economic and political development of the country. He talked about the petroleum subsidy, removal of petroleum subsidy, which we know that subsidy, to me, is one of the worst policies of any government in this country. This is a policy that is only enriching just a few members, of our community. And he talked about power. Power is critical. He talked about national security and foreign policy.
We'll definitely delve into all those areas he talked about. We'll break it down to get perspective on how to set the ball rolling. The ball is already set rolling.
Yes.
Now going into breaking down some of the issues raised. For this administration, he talked about security, remodeling the security architecture, empowering the security personnel in terms of infrastructure and training and all of that. What do you make out of that?
Well, I think that's insecurity has been a major problem of our great country since 1999. All successive administrations, they've all done their best to improve the security situation of this country. But to me, their best has not been good enough. So we expect President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to do a whole lot in resuscitating and reviving, the security situation of this country. We all know the security issues facing this country. The issues of Boko Haram is in the northeast. The issue of, communal issues, communal boundary issues in the north central, as well as farmers, herders conflict, in the north central. Then when you go down to the southeast, you have the IPOB question, which is very critical. Then you go down south, you also have the issue of militancy, especially in respect, of, destruction, of oil pipes, and diversion of oil that is critical to the development of this country. So the issue of kidnapping, the issue of banditry, the issue of, incessant robbery. So President Ahmed Tinubu discussed this issue effectively, and we expect that he will really turn the insecurity situation in Nigeria around, because one, he has tried it in Lagos State when he was governor, before he came in as governor of Lagos State. In Lagos State, most people can't even go out at night. The issue of insecurity was rampant. But as governor of Lagos State, he was able to, resuscitate the security situation in Lagos. And Lagos was now livable during his own time. So I believe this is a man that, commands the trust and respect of majority of Nigerians, but more importantly, of the political leadership of this great country, and also the military leadership, and this is very, very essential to be able to bring about stability in this great country.
Okay, if I would come in, the President Tinubu said that security will be top priority of his government. And he said because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail amidst insecurity and violence. Now, in terms of the blueprint that he highlighted in his speech towards achieving a secured nation, what would you say struck a chord for you?
Yeah, to me, I believe what he really meant, by fairness and justice, between, mind you, he said between north and south. It is good for everybody in this country irrespective of your political, religious, and ethnic affiliation.
Yeah.
To have that sense of belonging. Security, insecurity that we talk about, if you feel that you're being discriminated against by the federal government, it could lead to having some premonition against the government. Do you understand what I mean? So I think President Bola Tinubu was looking inward and talking about fairness, talking about togetherness. If there is no fairness, if there is no justice, that's why I remember during the political campaigns when he was in Ebonyi State, and I was also privileged to be there. I remember him saying that in respect of the issue of IPOB, that he would reach out to the Igbo leaders to find a common ground, even if it involves dialogue, fairness, and justice, even in terms of political appointment. If political appointment is being given to a particular section of the society, it brings bad blood to other sections.
Okay, if we still stay with security, the president talked about that he would increase the number of security personnel and that he will reform the security architecture in the country. How do you think he will go about this?
I think he has the capability of doing that. He also said it is in his manifesto that he will increase the number of the police personnel. He said it. He also said that he will increase the number of people in the military. See, let me tell you, this is a man that has the capability to reach beyond established bases in this country, be it geopolitical, be it religious. He's somebody that has reached out. He has made friends all geopolitical zones of this country. So I believe he can be able to accomplish that.
Okay, Chief, beyond, reaching out, dialogue, of course, is very key if you're, seeking for peace. Infrastructure, in terms of providing the necessary equipment to fight insecurity in the country, which is something that is really a big challenge for Nigeria.
Well, in terms of military infrastructure, we know it is very critical, to be able to fight off insurgents, whether it is Boko Haram, whether it is, farmers, herders conflict, whether it is IPOB militants. But to me, for this country and of our president to be able to get together this military infrastructure, we have to stop or reduce to the barest minimum corruption. Corruption has been a problem. You remember, in fact, if you look at the policies of successive governments in terms of acquisition of military hardwares, there has been news reports of corruption. We are all well aware of the Dasuku Gate, huge sum of money that was devoted to buy arms for the military so as to be able to fight the Boko Haram in the northeast. It is well known, it is common knowledge that this money was diverted for political patronage. So corruption is key. And another point is for him to get the right people to man our military.
Okay, talking about the right people and talking about still staying with security, how soon will you advise the president to appoint new service chiefs?
I will expect our dynamic president to really look into making appointments in the military circle, even within the next 2 months.
Okay.
It is very critical. The military chiefs, the Minister of Defense, and even in my own view, it's not a must. It's not a must that the Minister for Defense will be a former Army General. as has been the case in previous administrations. You know, you can have an astute administrator who understands governance that can lead in that area. It must not be a military administrator, because in some cases, when you appoint a retired general to become the Minister of Defense, you find out that at some point he gets into loggerhead with the military chiefs, probably because he sees them as his younger ones. Maybe he retired as a general 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So it must not be, because the job is only administrative.
Chief Abakahi, if I will come in here, I know this is one tough job any leader will have to take critical consideration, you know, before they make such decisions. So let's await, you know, to see what will come out of this. Let's wait and see who these service chiefs that you're recommending will turn out to be when the time comes for appointment. But let's also look at another critical area, the economy. He talked about, you know, remodeling the economy for growth and prosperity, you know, creating job. And there was a projection of 6% GDP growth, you know, which some sections have questioned how feasible that will be. From your perspective, what are the feasibilities in that area? Because he also talked about, you know, areas of concern that we use, that the administration will use to propel that growth in terms of, you know, budgetary stimulation and job creation and industrial policies and all of that.
I think, well, getting our GDP up to 6%, it is doable. Mind you, as at December last year, our GDP was about 3.58%. But I believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the capacity to raise it up. Mind you, when he was governor in Lagos State, remember the IGR, remember, in Lagos, before he came in, was about 600 million. But before he finished his second tenure, it came up to about 8 billion. And currently, as we speak, is about 50 billion, because he was able to build the structure which successive governors in Lagos State have followed. So this gentleman, the current president, he understands policies. He's a thinker. He's a visionary. I believe he can get it done. Mind you, he talked about the issue of electricity. There is no way you can have development in this country without having reliable electricity.
Production cost has really dragged.
That's been our problem. Like, in terms of electricity, we are generating about 8,000 megawatts.
Now, the president said he will double power generation and also improve distribution.
Yes,
see that being feasible.
He said it. Right now we are generating about 8,000 megawatts, but sadly, we are only transmitting 4,500 megawatts.
That's a huge shortfall.
Yes, and if you look at a comparable analysis of a country that is about the same size of Nigeria, I'm not really talking of in terms of population. Nigeria's population is about 220 million. South Africa has a population of about 60-point-something million. But South Africa generates 58,000 megawatts of electricity. So with the right policies, prudent and practical policies in place, I believe President Bola Ahmed Tinubu can be able to raise the megawatts of Nigerian electricity.
You are made to understand, if I'm correct, you are part of the team, you know, coming up with some of these policies. Can you share with us some of these recommendations in terms of growing the economy to be where we are supposed to be as a nation? Especially,
the president also mentioned 1 million jobs
for the youth.
In the digital economy sector.
Yes, mind you, the president, he said it, and I believe that, that he can be able to provide 1 million jobs for the youth. Look at the digital economy. It's a critical sector that previous governments have not been able to look into.
So you tell us some of those paperwork being done now.
Practical steps.
Yes, the practical steps to take. Part of your recommendations.
Well, no. I'm just making my recommendation as an individual.
Okay.
So I believe for us to be able to resuscitate the economy of this country, we need to provide the enabling environment that will ginger growth. Investors need to come into this country. I know that the president-elect has the capacity. He has done it before. Mind you, he was the very first governor to build an independent power project in Lagos State through Enron of USA. And now he is proposing that there will be private independent power projects. Even state governments can provide their own. They can establish their own.
What area of diversification we should be in? Because agric we've seen has proven, to contribute growth to the GDP. The ICT also we've seen growth from that.
I believe the current administration also need to look into the area of tourism. Tourism is a hot cake. Nigeria has a lot of tourist attraction all over the country. Is it the Mambila? Is it the Obudu? So we need a president that will really look into this area and improve on it. And if you do that, it will generate foreign exchange to this country. You see, let me tell you, the problems we are having is not looking inward. We need to let go borrowing. I'm telling you, we need to though borrowing is essential, I understand, for critical projects. But the removal of the fuel subsidy will also save huge sums of money for this country.
Okay, now if we still stay with the agricultural sector, the president talked about creating agricultural hubs that will reduce unemployment in the country, and I think that will also still be directed at empowering the youth. Now, what would you want to see in terms of creating agricultural hubs around the country? What should be the blueprint? How implementable is that, in your opinion?
It is. Apart from the agricultural hub, which we all know is essential, if you create it, even if it's not per state, you can create it per zones. But the president also talked about storage facilities.
For food security.
Very, very important. He talked about marketing boards. That's why we are having inflation. There needs to be a marketing board to be able to stabilize prices so that the farmers that are producing this product will not be crying. And at the same time, the consumers will not be crying for inflation. If there is a marketing board, we stabilize prices, which will now favor the farmers, but at the same time favor the consumers. The issue of storage is very, very critical. Look at young women, market women. They have tomatoes, they have onions, but because of lack of storage facilities, most of these products get spoiled. The president talked about it, the issue of storage. If they are able to work on it, I think it will solve half of the problems we are having.
Okay, if I will take you up on this. As Nigerians, we like the expression, hit the ground running. And before now, before the inauguration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a lot of Nigerians expect him to hit the ground running. Now, with the announcement on fuel subsidy removal, would you say it's a smooth takeoff for the administration, or it's going to be a rough ride ahead?
The issue of fuel subsidy is a step in the right direction. It's long overdue. And mind you, it's even former President Buhari that put it in place. Mind you, it's former President Buhari that put it in place. That is why
when you say put put it in place, put it in perspective.
Yes.
You mean the removal?
The removal.
Okay.
That's why in the current 2023 budget, there is no budgetary allocation for fuel subsidy.
That is beyond June.
That's what I'm saying.
2023.
Yes. And even the supplementary allocation for fuel subsidy, supplementary in this 2023, is about 2.557 trillion. These are monies that we can use for infrastructural development, that we can put into education, we can put into health, and other sectors of the economy. You know, so this fuel subsidy removal could even lead to proliferation, you know, of refineries.
So
just like Dangote has done. You will see some other eminent Nigerians, you know, building refineries. You will see foreign investors coming to build refineries. It will lead to jobs. So when the president talked about providing about 1 million jobs, these are other areas.
Given the boldness with which the president announced that fuel subsidy is gone, would you say we have a decisive president?
Well, you know,
that's a tough one.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is one Nigerian that is never scared of taking any decision that is positive. Whatever he believes in, that is in the best interest of this country, he goes for it. This is a gentleman that fought tooth and nail for the democratization of this country and was able to fight the despotic regime of Sani Abacha before he went on self-exile. He's not scared, so long as it's something that is positive for the socio-economic development as well as stability of this country, he will do it. This fuel subsidy is something that should have been done long ago. But you know, probably some other presidents are being pragmatic about it. But our current president, to me, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is principled, he is firm, but at the same time, he could also be pragmatic when called upon.
Okay, Chief Abakahi, we have to pause a bit for us to take a break, and when we come back, we'll pick up with this conversation. You stay tuned.
Sees that the Buhari-led administration has made remarkable progress,
like Lafia Transmission Station nearing completion.
Africa does not need charity, but partnerships that will promote the adequate investment
with the cooperation of all.
Sharing firsthand the experiences of reporters on the field as they bring to you weekly the beauty of Nigeria's diverse culture and the economic potentials therein. The Correspondents, development through the eye of the grassroots, showing every Monday at 1:30 p.m. on the network service of the NTA, with a repeat broadcast on NTA News 24 and NTA International. Join us.
Allow these children to grow.
Yes.
Many of them, you have somebody 14, 15 going to the university. Where are you going?
Information technology is the future.
Hello, a warm welcome to you. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguela.
If you don't create that awareness and you don't bring the young minds to identify that there are benefits in astronomy.
We have had experiences through various leadership strata, bringing us to where we can.
Platform engages guests on topical issues for national interest.
We have cases like that. We ought to protect children and also make parents realize that they have a primary responsibility.
Join us every Thursday at 2 p.m. on the network service of the NTA.
Thanks for staying tuned. The conversation is still on policy direction of President Tinubu's administration. Chief Abakahi, you were just sharing with us your perspective regarding the fuel subsidy. And this is area of concern, a very critical area of concerns for Nigeria. Everybody have one opinion or the other. And in as much as the president has stated that these funds meant for subsidy will be rechanneled, infrastructural development, education, healthcare, to make life meaningful for Nigerians. But the question is, Nigerians want to understand how will this transcend?
Well, to me, the fuel subsidy removal could lead to inflation, which will be transient. It will be a temporary one. But in the long run, you will find out that it will boost the economy.
Okay.
It will help provide employment opportunities. Because when the private sector or foreign investors come in and start building refineries, it will lead to massive employment opportunities in this country. And at that point, there will be no queues in the petrol stations. There will be no scarcity of fuel. So I think it's a very thoughtful idea of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to make that bold announcement at the appropriate time.
So many Nigerians believe subsidy should actually go, but then they want a lot of things to be in place. But getting Nigerians to be on the same page with the government is certainly not going to be easy. So what strategies do you think the government can employ or deploy to carry Nigerians along in this fuel subsidy removal policy?
Well, I think if you consider the amount of money we spend on fuel subsidy yearly, there has been news report that we spent about $10 billion on fuel subsidy yearly. So check if in 6 months, if we utilize part of this money, even half of it, to put into other sectors of the economy, job creation, agriculture, health. Even at this point, I would even suggest that the president may have to increase the budgetary allocation for health and education. In the current dispensation or in the previous dispensation, budgetary allocation for health is less than 6%. Budgetary allocation for education is perhaps less than 6%. When you go to advanced countries, apart from the military, just like in USA, or even Britain, I'm usually talking about the Western democratic nations, USA, Britain, France, Germany. Okay, let's leave Germany alone because they are not pursuing military acquisition. In the US, apart from the military, the next sector in terms of budgetary allocation is health and education. The same thing is applicable to Britain. So with this money that will accrue from fuel subsidy, the president can now channel it to health, to education, to infrastructure, to job creation,
I'm glad you
to
mentioned
digital economy.
Chief, I'm glad you mentioned infrastructure. We've always had that challenge in Nigeria of continuity. And this president, during his speech, he talked about continuity in picking up from where the past administration left off in terms of, improving on infrastructure development. We have seen, the strides recorded in the past administration. You have your perspective regarding that, but in what direction do you think this present administration should focus on in terms of, improving the infrastructural development of the country?
Well, I believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in some areas, we toe the line of the former president, Muhammad Buhari, especially in the area of infrastructure, like road construction, bridges. President Muhammad Buhari did phenomenal in the area of road, in the area of bridges, even in the area of housing. But however, to me, there has to be a paradigm shift in some areas of infrastructure too. For example, the issue of railroad I believe, based on the dynamic nature and the character of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he may have to look into getting the Eastern Corridor in respect of the railway. Because if you look at it, there is no way you can have railway all the way from Lagos to Ibadan, cut across other areas, go all the way to the north, forgetting about the Eastern and Southern Corridor.
Okay, let me bring in an area which perhaps you have expertise in, talking about foreign policy. And the president talked about retooling Nigeria's foreign policy, especially in the direction of peace and stability in the West African region. And he also said the crisis in Sudan is of concern. So what should be the foreign policy direction of the Tinubu administration, in your opinion? Yeah,
in my opinion, we all know the foreign policy structure of Nigeria is Afrocentrism. So I don't think any president of Nigeria will go away from that. Nigeria is looked as a big brother in Africa. And any issues happening in Africa eventually will affect Nigeria, more especially in the West African sub-region. So when you see, look at how was ECOWAS formed. ECOWAS was formed after the Civil War by former military president Gowon. And it was done in order to have peace and stability in the West African sub-region. So for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to talk about peace and stability in Africa, especially West African sub-region, I think it is a step in the right direction. And going all the way to Sudan. Sudan, as you know, is part of Africa.
Yeah.
So anything in the contrary, whether it is political instability, civil strife, that as is going on in Sudan, it touches the president of this country.
But you know that the crisis in Sudan also revealed some perceived challenges in diplomacy and even our big brother status or stature in Africa. What measures do you think we should take in terms of foreign policy towards sustaining or boosting that status and stature that we have as big brother?
Well, I believe first of all, we also have to look inward. We have to work, the president has to work towards improving the economy of Nigeria, bringing about peace and stability in this country, because before you focus attention outwardly.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So if that is not done, it's just like when we are having problems in the Northeast during Boko Haram. I remember there was a time that we had to bring back, some of our troops, in an OAU peacekeeping mission to be able to come down and help fight in Northeast. So I believe national stability, political stability, economic improvement is critical for a functional foreign policy.
And this economic stability we're talking about, if we recall, he talked about overhauling the monetary policies, creating a unified exchange rate where interest rates should be reduced, drastically to increase investment. Nigeria gets to woo more foreign investors to come into the country to invest.
And even access to capital.
Yes.
For business men and women.
Yes, indeed. So what do you make out of this policy direction of the president in terms of, overhauling the monetary policy in Nigeria?
Of course, the monetary policy in this country has to be overhauled. It has to be resuscitated. If you consider what happened in the last 3-4 months, the design or whatever of the naira and the misery that it cost many Nigerians. You know, we have to look into it. The president talked about it, that the new Naira and the old one will be used simultaneously, probably for some time. He didn't mention when it will end, you know. And you know very well, in terms of monetary policy, you know, the exchange rate is seriously something to that cannot be talked about, you know. So the current president, mind you, to really bring down the exchange rate is not something you do overnight. But when our economy starts improving, you see the exchange rate changing. When we start having employment opportunities, when we start exporting, the president talked about it. He talked about the agricultural hubs, like you rightly mentioned. The president talked about manufacturing.
But one question, you know, I'm just curious about, I want you to create a clarity. If this unified exchange rate happen, will it devalue the Naira?
I do not think so.
Okay.
I do not think so. It will be in our best interest as a country for that unified exchange rate to come into play. You know, but like I said, before it comes into play, we have to start generating revenue internally. We have to start exporting. You know, Nigeria is a huge market, and Nigeria, all these other countries in West Africa, we can always export to them. Go to Aba, go to Onitsha, you see people manufacturing goods, shoes, wares, iron products, which can easily be exported, even if it's not going to the Western countries.
So you're saying
through the African free trade,
so
we can export to West Africa.
Chief Abakahi, you're saying that more attention, you know, should be given to those manufacturers, especially in the East, the Southern.
And probably tax rebate. They can even get tax rebate. The president talked about it, even during his campaign. He talked about granting soft loans to young entrepreneurs. He talked about training, you know, so talked about low interest rate. So he even talked about student loan for the youth. So these are the critical areas that will also help to improve the economy.
Okay, let's go back to managing Nigeria's diversity. There has been a consistent clamor, especially going by some of the things that played out in the last general elections, where a lot of our fault lines were played up. Now there's a clamor for managing Nigeria's diversity. The president will be making a lot of appointments. What would you advise the president to do in terms of managing our diversity and reaching out to all sections of the country, irrespective of who voted for him or not?
Yeah. In fact, to be honest to you, I don't think the president needs any advice in terms of management of diversity in this country. He has done it in the past when he was governor of Lagos State. He's been able to manage diversity. Like I told you, he's somebody that commands the trust and respect of majority of Nigerians, of the political leadership, of the religious leadership, traditional leadership of this great country. He's somebody that has tentacles in every part of this country, be it northeast, northwest, south, even southeast. So I believe he will be able to look at when he was governor, look at his appointments. He appointed Igbos. One Ben Akabeze was commissioner for either economic or budget. You know, mind you, the vice president that has just left, mind you, he's from Ogun State. He's not from Lagos, but he was a commissioner. Lai Mohammed is from Kwara State. He was a commissioner. Bella Alake is from Ekiti State. He was a commissioner. This is somebody that he has the capability to hunt for the best.
Okay. It seems we're at that point where appointments are very critical for Nigeria developmental growth. The women, I know he mentioned that he will pay, very serious attention to women and youth. But in terms of women clamoring, I know a lot of women have come out to say they believe in the Tinubu's administration that he's going to carry the women along.
And the
that
35%.
Yes, affirmative action will be fulfilled or may be fulfilled. I don't know. What's your perception?
Well, in terms of gender equity, both in Nigerian politics and governance, is an area that previous administrations have failed. Even currently, in the previous dispensation, the percentage of women, both in appointive positions and political elective positions, they are not up to 8%.
So do you think we'll see a difference?
So I believe we may see a paradigm shift. In fact, I was in the church, inauguration church on Sunday at the National Christian Center, and I had the very eloquent and knowledgeable speech that was made by our First Lady, where she also touched on this issue you talked about, the issue of women empowerment. She talked about it, that she's going to make sure that women have their own place in this current administration. And I believe, mind you, the president was the first governor ever in the history of this country to appoint a woman as deputy governor. His policies and appointments has always been, devoid of religion, of ethnicity. So he's an all-rounder that believes that all Nigerians are equal and can get their place on the table.
Okay, briefly, the president is someone that has showed desire to be president, and that's what gave rise to a Milocon, during the campaigns. And he has even said, don't pity me because I applied for this job. So do you see this will of the president to govern translating to transformation in our country?
Yes. Just let me quote our First Lady. She also said in her speech at the church that her family are already made, that her and her husband are not coming to power to mismanage the economy or to steal public funds, that they have come to help the Nigerian people.
Okay.
And I believe that our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will do everything humanly possible to reform, resuscitate, and revive the economy of this country.
That's
bring
great
peace
optimism
and stability to this our great country and end ethno-religious conflict.
Okay. Chief Abakahi, I know you want to go on, but that's where we wrap up this conversation. We want to thank you very much for your contributions. There's a whole lot to talk about when we want to look at the policy direction of this administration, because it's just starting and we want to believe and hope for a better Nigeria. Thank you so much, Chief George Abakahi. He's a political affairs analyst. Thank you for your time on platform.
Thank you for having me as always. I appreciate it.
Tariq Ben, the incoming chief. Thank you so much. Okay, all right. So that is that's platform. We've been discussing policy direction of this Tinubu, President Tinubu's administration, and he said something very important. He said, though our burden may bend us at times, but it will never break us. Let's be united because it is time for renewed hope. I'm Ruth Aguwele. Bye.